Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for not doing this last night. I had gotten home from work and I was a little tired, but I'm here today. Let's do the show. Before I get started though, in my community tab on YouTube, I have posted 3 different links. The first one is to my Discord. I would recommend you joining the Discord because if you have fantasy football questions, I do answer them on stream. But if you join the Discord, you get first come, first serve for fantasy football questions being answered. And that is where links to the fantasy football league are, the fantasy basketball league I created the other day also is. And on the Discord, you also get my YouTube schedule, my streaming schedule for YouTube. But and that fantasy football and basketball league is for subscribers and people that have watched my videos. So I would recommend joining both the leagues and the Discord, please. But let's get into the show now. My first upset of the week is Michigan State plus 11.5 against Iowa. Iowa looked terrible last week against Penn State, but that's Penn State. So Iowa could turn it around and just lay the beats on Michigan State. But I think I think there's a chance that they could upset Iowa. Upset number 2 of the week. I think it's more realistic. It is UTEP favored by 1 point over Louisiana Tech, but I'm taking Louisiana Tech to pull the upset over UTEP. And the line is +1. My third upset of the week is Memphis. Hold up. I forgot to do the point spread on this. So give me a minute. My third upset of the week is Boise State over Memphis. Memphis lost their first game of the year against Missouri last week. I think Memphis is on upset alert for one reason. I think we're starting to see the true Memphis Tigers football come out. And I don't like it. It's not pretty. So that is why I have Memphis on upset alert. My cover number 1 of the week is and it's a game that's tomorrow night. I have Temple. I have Tulsa covering the 3.5, minus 3.5 over Temple. I think Tulsa can still win without Braylon Braxton. I don't know by how much, but I think they can still win because Temple is not that good. My second cover of the week is Louisville minus 3.5 to cover over NC State. I watched NC State last week, and they looked terrible. I want to emphasize this as much as I can. If you're betting on this game, I'm taking Louisville and the cover. I don't trust NC State to score more than 21 points. If you watched their game against Virginia last week, they only scored 21 points. And I don't think they can score more than 21 points because they don't have a quarterback. Over under number 1 of the week is Boston College and Virginia. I think this game is going to go over the point spread. I mean, over. There we go. I'm taking Virginia, Boston College. I'm taking the over of 55.5. I think there's going to be, I know Boston College, I've heard from some people that they have a good defense. I don't believe it. They gave up 31 points to Florida State a couple weeks ago. I think they're due to give up another over 30 points, maybe, to Virginia. That is why I'm hammering the over on this game. The next game I'm hammering the over on is Kansas and Texas. Both teams can score. Both teams have a good quarterback. The over-under is 61.5. I am easily taking the over here for two reasons. I think this is going to be the highest scoring game of the week in college football, for one. And two, Jalen Daniels and Quinn Ewers could combine for over 400 passing yards each. That is why I'm taking the over. Now, to the lesser part of this, the under. The first under I have is West Virginia, Texas. West Virginia, TCU, correction. And the over-under is set at 50.5. For me, I am taking the under, and I'm going to tell you why. TCU doesn't entice me at all to take the over in this game, because if you look at their offense, it says they score over 30 points, but I don't see them scoring over 30 points in this game, because look at West Virginia's defense. They've stepped up, and I understand they played Pitt, and we don't know what Pitt is. We don't know if Pitt's good or we don't know if they're bad. And the other thing with West Virginia is they're 3-1, which I did not expect. I did not have them doing good this year in the Big 12. I thought they were going to be the worst team in the Big 12. To be honest, I was wrong so far. I hope they continue to prove me wrong and win more than I had them winning 4 games. West Virginia. I hope they prove me wrong and win more than 4 games. But back to the over-under. The reason I'm taking the under is because I don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored. I think this may be a defensive battle. And the next game that I'm taking the under in is Miami of Ohio, Kent State. And yes, you did see Miami of Ohio on my rankings. I've liked how they played so far. I was very high on them in the post spring practice when I did my preseason conference rankings before the season started, and I'm still high on Miami. But I think this is going to be I think Miami, they're going to hit the under, because I think Miami scores like 28 points, and then they just start playing. Then the defense comes up, shows up for Miami, and they don't give up. They maybe give up 14 points, because Kent State only scores 16 points per game. That is why I'm going to take the under here. New segment on Thursday on today's episode of the Talk Sports Show, College Football Over Under. is I'm going to give you a few players and their projections for this week. And this is going to be a regular on the show going forward. The first one, Byron Brown, USF. I think they play Navy this weekend at Navy. And here's what I'm going to say about Navy. Their defense, I don't think their defense has seen a quarterback like Byron Brown who can run and pass. I think he passes for over 300 yards and throws another 3 touchdowns, and he gets 80 to 95 yards rushing and a rushing touchdown in a USF blowout win over Navy. My number 2 player to watch this week in college football is Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders. And the reason to watch him is to see if he can bounce back from the clunker he had against Oregon last week. And judging by the numbers I'm giving him, the projection I'm giving him, I think he bounces back nicely against USC, even in a losing effort. I think Shedeur Sanders goes for over 200 yards passing, 4 passing touchdowns, 75 yards rushing. And the number 1 guy that I'm going to project his stats for week 5, Louisville quarterback Jack Plummer. I think he goes for, and this is against this is week 5, and I'm projecting his projection. Over 180 yards passing, 3 passing touchdowns, 65 yards rushing. And now, for those of you that don't know, I have a co-host every Sunday. We talk about college. We review the week of college football, and here is his upset picks for this week. His first upset is Utah over Oregon State, which I like this upset for one reason. I think it can happen. His number 2 upset is Duke over Notre Dame. This one, I could see it going either way because Notre Dame's coming off a loss, and I think they're going to be upset to the point where they want to take it out on somebody. And I feel like that's going to be Duke. But then I can also see the other side of the spectrum where Duke's having a good season, and I can see where Notre Dame's probably, like I said, upset that they lost to Ohio State last week. But they're looking ahead to the rest of their schedule, and they overlook Duke, and Duke beats them. And his number 1 upset this week is West Virginia over TCU. I agree with this. I just talked about West Virginia TCU, the over-under in that game. I think he's onto something. I think West Virginia can upset TCU this week. Now, here we go on to the next segment. It is my SEC power rankings after week 4. There is a slight bit of movement between the teams that were 11 through 13. At number 14, I have South Carolina, and they're going to stay here until they can prove me yes, you should trade Metcalf for Ridley. And the reason I say that is because Metcalf is still going to get targets, but I think what's going to happen is as the season goes on, I think Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to take targets away from not DK, but Tyler Lockett. So, yes, I would make that trade because Ridley is the number one in Jacksonville, just as Metcalf is in Seattle. But Pete Carroll likes to run the ball. And I'm going to say this. I didn't say this when I did my fantasy football advice the other day. But if somehow Zach Charbonnet is on your waiver wire still and he's available, I would pick him up as waivers, depending on what league you play, what league type you play in, have already gone through. And another guy I would pick up is Devon Achane. But with Devon Achane, I would be cautious because Salvon Ahmed is probably going to be back this week. And Jeff Wilson's supposed to be back next week, but they don't know if he's going. They think he's going to return this year, but they don't know. But back to South Carolina. Until they can prove me that they can win games, they will be staying at number 14. At number 13, I have Kentucky. They're another team that's got to prove to me that they can actually win games. And they got a big game this week against Florida. If they beat Florida, I will move them up my SEC rankings. Mississippi State is at number 12. And just a little teaser, you may see their coach in a couple of segments on a new segment that I'm introducing on the show today. But back to Mississippi State. I like Will Rogers. I really do. But the problem is there's not enough complementary weapons around Will Rogers. That is why I have Mississippi State at number 12. At number 11 is Alabama. They moved up 2 spots. They were number 13 last week. I can't put them inside my top 10 until I see consistent quarterback play from either Jalen Milroe, which he's going to be the starter again this week, Tyler Buchner, or Ty Simpson. Saban, you have 2 other freshman quarterbacks on your roster. Why aren't you giving them reps as QB1? Because Milroe's not going to be there longer than probably maybe 1 more year, and then he'll go pro. Buckner's gone after this year. Simpson's probably going to enter the portal if he doesn't get playing time. See what you have in your younger quarterbacks. At number 10, I have Auburn. Auburn's another team I like. But they, again, new head coach, they have to prove to me that they can win in order to slide up my rankings. Number 9, Vanderbilt. I have been surprised by Vandy this year to an extent. I think if they win a couple more games, they can move up inside the top 8. Speaking of number 8, it is Georgia. Yes, I know what people are going to say. Why is Georgia not in your top 5 of your SEC rankings, Alec? One word: inconsistency. That is the reason they are not in the top 6 of my SEC rankings. Inconsistency, new quarterback. They don't look like the 2-time national champs at all. They look good, but they're not beating the brakes off of teams. They only beat South Carolina by 10 2 weeks ago. And then they killed UAB, which that's UAB. And that's the one thing I don't like about the SEC is you get cupcake non-conference games. Come on, Greg Sankey. You got to step up and tell these SEC teams they got to play real non-conference games, not cupcake non-conference games. Sorry for that 30-second rant, but I had to get that out. At number 7 is Arkansas. And Arkansas is at number 7 because I like KJ Jefferson. I think he could be a dark horse to be a first-round QB. But there, again, like I said about Mississippi State earlier, they don't have a lot of good weapons around KJ Jefferson. If they did, it would be a different story. They would be higher. At number 6, they did not move from last week. It is Florida. I need to see more from the Gators in order to move them up. More. If I see consistency and I see them putting up points, I will move them up my SEC rankings. Well said. And I'm going to tell you right now, Billy Napier is not on the hot seat yet. If he loses a couple games, he may be on there. You will see the coaches that aren't on there in a little bit. At number 5 is Texas A&M. Again, they're another team that did not move up or down in my rankings. They stayed right where they were from last week. I need to see A&M. You're going to hear this word a good amount for the next 10 minutes. Consistency. They're another team in the SEC I need to see constant consistency from in order to move up my rankings in the SEC. They win, but they don't win convincingly, and they've got Connor Weidman at quarterback, and he's got potential, but they need to win. And their coach, you may see him in a little bit on the coaches on the hot seat. At number 4, I have Missouri. I did not move them up, didn't move them down. Big game this week for Missouri. They are in the top 25 of my rankings and in real life. But the difference is my rankings, it's based on how you play. It's not based on, it is based on how you play every week. And Missouri's played good through 4 weeks. If they keep playing consistently good, they will move up my rankings into the top 3 and knock out one of the top 3 teams in my rankings. Number 3, Ole Miss. I love Jackson Dart, QB for Ole Miss. He's one of my favorite SEC QBs. And I think when he does declare for the draft, he will be a dark horse for first or second round pick in the draft. But I need to keep seeing consistency from their offense. One game they'll go out and score 30. The next game they'll go out and score 20. You can't have that inconsistency. At number 2, LSU. One word. Undefeated. They are undefeated so far. And yes, I know what you're going to say. Why are they so low in your rankings? I need to see them put everything together, and they will move up in my CFB rankings. And at number 1, to no one's surprise, Tennessee. Big game this week for Tennessee. They play South Carolina. If they beat South Carolina, they will stay number 1 in the SEC power rankings, but they will also move inside my top 10 in my CFB rankings. So here is the new segment I was talking about. College football coaches hot seat, ranking 10-1. I'm going to explain. If 10 through 6, there's a chance you get fired, but there's also a chance that 10, your seat is not hot at all. 1, you're probably getting axed at the end of the season and fired. Starting at number 10, Chuck Martin, Miami of Ohio. I'm very high on Miami of Ohio this year in the MAC. As you saw in the preseason, I think they can win the MAC. That is why that is not why Chuck Martin's on this list. I think there's boosters at Miami of Ohio that want a new head coach, but I don't think they're going to get it because Chuck Martin's been there for a long time, and that is why he's not. His hot seat is very, very cold right now. I don't think he's going to get fired. At number 9 is Dabo Swinney of Clemson. This one I'm going to explain, and it might take a while to explain, but the reason that Dabo's hot seat is it's cold right now. But if they keep losing, not saying he gets fired, he may leave and just retire. But he's outstepped the way he does things at Clemson. He doesn't use the portal. He barely uses NIL. And he wonders why kids leave Clemson and go to other schools. And that is why he's on this list. I have nothing against Dabo. He's a great coach. It's just, what's the word I'm looking for? He's outgrowing the old way of doing stuff. He needs to adapt and change. At number 8 is Clark Lea of Vanderbilt. Clark Lea, I think, has done a tremendous job of Vanderbilt from year 1 to now. He's got Vanderbilt. They're not the laughingstock of the SEC anymore. You don't go there just to beat Vanderbilt anymore. SEC teams, take notice. I think Vanderbilt in the next 2 or 3 years is going to be really good. Clark Lea knows how to recruit. And if I was a college kid, if I was a senior in high school, where's the first place I would want to go to college other than going to Alabama, Tennessee, Ohio State, Michigan, Texas? I would want to go up to Nashville, Tennessee and go to Vanderbilt because you're right in downtown and you get the view of everything. At number 7 is Neil Brown. His hot seat is very lukewarm. They've started the year 3-1. That is why Neil Brown is not higher on my list of head coaches that could get fired. But if they lose a few games here and there, he could plummet down that list and be 1 or 2. His seat is lukewarm right now. At number 6 is Jeff Hafley, Boston College. And this shouldn't be really a surprise to anybody. I like Jeff Hafley. He's a good coach, but Boston College is, I think they're on the upswing, but I think Hafley, unfortunately, maybe gets fired at the end of the season. Like Neil Brown right now, his hot seat is semi-lukewarm. But if they keep losing, his hot seat's going to heat up and get hotter and hotter every week. Mississippi State fans, I'm sorry. I had to put him on here. Zach Arnett. His hot seat is lukewarm right now, but he's in a different situation. He's on here because he really didn't. Mississippi State had to find a new head coach because of Mike Leach passing away. And they didn't have time to go out and interview candidates, so Zach Arnett was thrust into being the new head coach. His seat is lukewarm right now, but unfortunately, I think he's going to fall victim and get fired in the offseason. So Mississippi State can actually find their next head coach. At number 4, this is probably a shocker to people, Jimbo Fisher at A&M. And I tell you why. The last 2 years, he's had good recruiting classes. And what's he had to show for it? 7 wins. He should be winning the SEC West. But he's not. And his seat is heating up. His hot seat is heating up a lot. But he's safe for now. The reason A&M didn't fire him last year at the end of the year is, 1, they didn't have his replacement on staff. And 2, his buyout is an ungodly amount of money. At number 3, I've got Butch Jones. He could have been 1 or 2, but the 2 guys in front of him, I think, are more likely to get fired before he does. Butch Jones does not deserve to be a head coach in college football. And that's nothing against him. He was a great head coach at Tennessee, but Arkansas State, I thought when they hired him, it was not a good fit. I thought he should have took a bigger job. And maybe if they fire him, that's what he might do. He might go somewhere to be like an offensive, defensive coordinator to try to get his pedigree back. And that is why he's number 3. These next 2 guys. Number 2, Tony Elliott, Virginia. I understand he's in year 2, but Virginia is terrible. And I think if they don't win a single game this year, I think Tony Elliott gets fired and they hire another coach. And at number 1, Brent Pry, Virginia Tech. His hot seat is steaming hot. I think if they don't win another game this year, I mean, you can't put all the blame on him because Grant Wells has been hurt most of the season, and you can't put the blame on a coach for their quarterback being hurt. But I think if they lose out, he's done. He's getting fired. Now on to my top 5 QBs for the 2024 NFL Draft. And I've updated this list since the last time I did it. At number 5, I've got Duke quarterback Riley Leonard. Riley Leonard's one of my favorite sleeper quarterbacks for the 2024 draft. He's making his debut on this list. At number 4 is Sam Hartman from Notre Dame. I liked a lot of the things I saw last week when they played Ohio State, when he played against Ohio State's defense. He has a good arm. He's somewhat mobile. And I think he can survive in the NFL. At number 3 is Caleb Williams. He's going to have to throw the ball a lot at USC because they have no defense. He has some decently good wide receivers. He has Jerry Rice's son as one of his receivers. That's spectacular. Jerry Rice is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL of all time. His son plays at USC and is on the same team as Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams will probably be one of the top 5 picks in the draft this year. At number 2, I have Tyler Van Dyke of Miami, Florida. I like the improvements I've seen from Van Dyke this year. Even if they're marginal improvements. I think Josh Gaddis was holding him back last year. That is why he's number 2. And staying at number 1 is Quentin Ewers of Texas. This kid, Quentin Ewers, is going to be special in the NFL whenever he comes out and declares for the draft. I like me some Quentin Ewers. I wish he would have stayed at Ohio State, but I'm fine with him being at Texas, especially after he beat Alabama in week 2. Now, here are my top 5 wide receivers for the 2020, way too early 2024 NFL draft. At number 5, I have Cornelius Johnson from Michigan. I've watched some film on this kid. He is good at high pointing the ball and catching it and getting yards after the catch. At number 4, I've got Ohio State wide receiver Emeka Egbuka. This kid, Ohio State's going to have 3 receivers that come out this year. Marvin Harrison Jr., who you're going to see later on in this segment. Emeka Egbuka, who I'm talking about right now. And the intriguing one, Julian Fleming. Because nobody knows where he's going to go in the draft if he does come out. If he doesn't and he goes back to Ohio State, he will be probably the number 1 receiver next year on Ohio State. And Egbuka's a junior, so he could easily go back to Ohio State as well. But back to Egbuka. This kid can he's a good football player. And that's all I have to say. Number 3, Ricky Pearsall, Florida. I've watched a small amount of tape on Ricky Pearsall. He could be the next Kadarius Toney from Florida. He's fast. He's fast off the line of scrimmage. And who doesn't want a really fast wide receiver? I would. Honestly, I would. But that's just me. I don't know how everybody else feels about it. At number 2, Keon Coleman. This kid was electric at Michigan State, and he's doing the same thing at FSU. He could be a first-round pick at the NFL level when he comes out next year. And like I said, at number 1, Marvin Harrison Jr., Ohio State. He is the next great Ohio State wide receiver to come out. You had Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Michael Thomas, Garrett Wilson, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave. And those are the three I can name recently. Jackson Smith-Njigba. Four Ohio State in the last 3 years, has had 4 wide receivers drafted in the first round. Besides Michael Thomas. And I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to make it 5 guys. 5 Ohio State receivers drafted in the last 4 years in the first round. Like I said, other than Michael Thomas, who was a second-round pick. And last but not least on the show today, here are my Big 12 power rankings after week number 4. At number 14, I've got Baylor. They got absolutely stomped by Texas, and I think they've solidified themselves a spot at the bottom of my power rankings in the Big 12 the rest of the season. At number 13, I've got Cincinnati. Cincinnati doesn't really entice me because they've got a quarterback that does not deserve to even sniff being a starting quarterback in college football. That is Emory Jones. Nothing against Cincinnati. Whale of a good program. They produced Luke Fickell, who is now the head coach of Wisconsin. But until I see them change quarterbacks, they will be around this range. Number 12, Houston. Houston could move up. I just need to see more. Same with Iowa State. If they play better, they can move up my rankings as well in the Big 12. Texas Tech, probably after this week, will not be at 10 anymore. I will probably be moving them up if TCU loses to West Virginia. Speaking of TCU, I have them at number 9 right now, but they have a big game this week against West Virginia. Come on, West Virginia, beat TCU. At number 8, I've got Oklahoma State. They're starting to grow on me. I didn't really like them at the beginning of the season. That is why they were lower in my rankings. But now as the season's gone on through 4 weeks, I've seen enough to move it to start gradually, slowly growing and moving them up my rankings. They're at 8 right now. I think they were at 8 last week. But if teams in front of them lose or slip up, they can move up further in my rankings. At number 7 is Kansas State. Kansas State's another team that if they win out, they will be in the top 3. If they keep winning, they will move back up in my power rankings in the Big 12. At number 6, I've got Kansas. Jalen Daniels is a real deal, but I need to see them beat a legit Big 12 team. And that they get that opportunity this week against Texas. If they beat Texas, not only will they move up in my Big 12 power rankings, but they may pop up in my college football rankings. At number 5 is UCF. They're suffering without John Rice Plumlee right now. But if they get Rice Plumlee back and they win convincingly, and they win by a lot, they will move up and pass maybe two of my teams that are in my top four at the Big 12. And at number 4 in the Big 12, and my Big 12 standings, after week 4, Oklahoma, they choked it against Cincinnati last week. Cincinnati should have beat them. Dylan Gabriel is a good quarterback. I think he may be able to survive in the NFL. I don't know enough about him, even though he torched USF when he was at UCF. But I am not sold on Oklahoma. The only reason they won that game was because of their defense. At number 3, I have West Virginia. I was going to put them at 2, but I need to see them prove themselves this weekend against TCU. If they do, they could jump my number 2 team in my power rankings in the Big 12. I've been surprised at how good Neil Brown's been coaching this team this year. Nobody, including me, was picking them to be this competitive in the Big 12. At number 2, I've got BYU. BYU has been surprising, to say the least. And rounding out my Big 12 rankings is Texas. No one should be surprised at that. Texas is officially back, folks. They will be a force to be reckoned with the next 5 years. Because after they lose years, they still got Malik Murphy and Arch Manning, who I think, hot take, Arch Manning will be the starting quarterback next year for Texas if Quinn Ewers leaves. And ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for today's stream. I will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. And tomorrow's stream will probably be a 1 or 2 hour stream with me talking about NFL and giving you start and sit question, giving you fantasy football advice. And then Friday's stream at 9 o'clock will be start and sit for Sunday games, as well as sleepers for fantasy football week 4. If you have any questions right now, before I sign off, please put them down in the comment section, and I will answer them. Also, if you haven't already looked at the community tab in my YouTube, there's the newest post. Actually, instead of doing that, I will just share my screen. I'm getting something up for you, ladies and gentlemen. Just give me a minute. YouTube homepage. My channel. Community tab. I have a community pull-up. The first one is give your honest opinion. Do you want to compete with me and my co-host, Robbie Colleton, in a fantasy football league? And then the second community tab, the community post, update that Fantasy Football and Basketball League is for all subscribers and people that have watched my videos. Putting both links as well as Discord. Link number 1 is the Discord, which is right there. Link number 2, Fantasy Basketball League. Link number 3 is the Fantasy Football League. Join up all 3, please. We're trying to fill up fantasy basketball and fantasy football. Fantasy football, preferably before Thursday night football tomorrow, so we can draft tomorrow afternoon and have the points cap for this week. And fantasy basketball, we're trying to draft within the next 2 weeks because basketball season starts in a little over 3 weeks. And the other thing I'm going to talk about while I'm on my page is my memberships. You see this lovely join tab right here. All you do is click on it and it takes you to my memberships. I'm going to start backwards this time. The expert membership at the Talk Sports level is $14.99 a month. The premium level membership is $9.99 a month. The starter level membership is $2.99 a month. In the Talk Sports opener level membership is 99 cents a month. And with all of these, not only do you get to be a member of the Talk Sports community, you also get exclusive perks. As well as merch, as well as the memberships, I also offer a merch store. And as you can see, all you do is click on that. All you do is click on the name of the merch store, and it'll take you over, and it'll say you can buy a t-shirt, you can buy anything you want. I would recommend purchasing a membership and getting some merch. It would help me greatly, and it would also support the channel. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to do it for today's stream. I will see you all back here tomorrow at, let's say, 4 o'clock. But just a little heads up. You might see a surprise stream tonight with fantasy football advice with me here on YouTube. I also do have a Twitch account where I stream from time to time. And I recommend following me on Twitch as well. It is Alec Buckeyes 24, all lowercase. As sometimes I stream over there, and you don't want to miss those streams either, because I do talk about fantasy football over there, and there's other topics I cover over there. So also go follow my Twitch and follow the socials. Alec Thomas Pecano 24 on Instagram, Snapchat, Alec Pecano, and add me on Facebook, Alec Pecano. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That does it for today's stream. I will see you back here tomorrow and maybe tonight